Hey, Craig, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you so much for having me, Tom. Great to meet you.
Absolutely. It's good to meet you, man. So, if you haven't met Craig yet, Craig Ballantyne has been the editor of the personal development newsletter Early to Rise since 2011. And I have had a ton of my subscribers and my peers in different mastermind groups say to me, hey, you better check out Early to Rise because it's really good stuff. And it is. And his daily essays reach over 150,000 readers and teach people how to build their wealth, improve their health, and become the best versions of themselves. He also coaches entrepreneurs around the world how to turn their ideas into money and help people all over the world. So Craig, it's great to have you.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. I've written a book and I'm on your email list and I get, your tips on how to write a book and, most importantly, how to get that book out to the world. So we can talk about that stuff and all the great ways to have a perfect day so that people can get something more done and get more books out.
Absolutely, man. I'm stoked about that. So yeah, I mean, I love the concept of like the perfect day, right? Because especially, as an author, the creative process is not something you can just do in one day, right? You have to have day after day after day, working towards, outlining the book, creating the ideas, writing it, getting it published, marketing it. It's a long-term process, right? And so it requires a whole lot of good days in a row to really make that happen, right? So I'd love to, hear, like, before we get into like the details of how you go about your days, what is kind of your philosophy on your days? And like, for Craig Ballantyne, what is a great day for you? What does that look like?
Yeah, it's a really great question. And so in the book, I talk about this thing called the 3C formula. And this comes from Stoic philosophy. And an ancient philosopher named Epictetus once said, control what you can, cope with what you can't, and concentrate on what counts. And so I thought, hey, wait a minute, I can apply this to a day. And I realized we can apply that to the 3 parts of the day. So we can control the morning. We control what time we get up, what we do first thing, what we have for breakfast. We have more control over the morning. And so that's what I coach people on. It doesn't matter what time you get up. I'm not one of those 5 a.m. guys. All that matters get up, but what you do with the hours that you are up. And it's all about controlling those first few hours that you're up. So you have that victory, you move ahead. And I'm sure there's a lot of people listening who love that morning time because they can go and they can write. And that's what I've done, personally in my life is I get up and I write 1,500 words in that first hour, prepared the night before. So I have that outline and I come and I can control that morning. And so then even if nothing else went right for me over the course of that day, I have those 1,500 words in the bank and the world can't take those away from me. So then we go on and we control the chaos of the afternoons, which is what I talk about. And that's just mentally being prepared for all the obstacles that are going to come up in your way. Like, what happens if the kids get sick? What's the plan for that? What happens if, the meeting runs longer? What's the plan for that? What's the plan for those busy days when we have meetings and then taking the kids somewhere? So it's all about being prepared and then concentrating on what counts. We do all of that work over the course of the day. We have all that structure in place so that we're able to have our freedom at night to be present with our families, or if we prefer, to do our writing in the evening.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's just some great points there. I love the idea of like controlling the morning, right? Because it's a lot easier in the morning because, maybe you wake up before other people or the kids aren't up yet, or there's no distractions. You don't have appointments and phone calls and all that. And you're right. I mean, because if you just follow, your calendar, you follow other people's schedules, you follow what's in your inbox, you don't have any control over that, right?
Absolutely.
So what do you do, first thing in the morning when you wake up then to make sure you're in control for that day?
Yeah, for me personally, I just go right downstairs. I go to the kitchen. I make this drink of like greens drink and some vitamins and stuff. And then I sit down in front of my computer and I type. And so, you were talking about there's no distractions. And it's funny how it's almost like the world has teased us because we have the most discipline in the morning when we have the least amount of distractions. And then we have the least discipline at night, down here, and the most distractions. So it's not matched properly. But we do need to take advantage of that morning time when there are no distractions. And so I'm up very early and I write first thing. And then that still allows me to do meditation and walk the dog and have breakfast, maybe even do some exercise before my team is up. And I'm usually on East Coast and my team is back on Mountain Standard Time. And so I get a lot done, and then we have our team meetings, and then we go into a lot of interaction over the course of the day. But I've already won the day as far as I'm concerned because I got up so early and I did that writing.
Absolutely. So it sounds to me like you have like this one goal in the morning, which is to write. Do you have like a big list of stuff to do? Because I've heard like one great tip to be more productive is just to find like that one or two things each day, like your critical tasks that you have to get done.
Yeah, that's a great point. And so what I teach people to do, especially people that have real jobs and have to go to work and then, try and fit in their writing around that, what I tell people to do is wake up and get up just 15 minutes before anybody else in your house. Go down to your kitchen table and work on your number one priority in life. So, it might be health if you're, you've spent the last 20 years working and taking care of your family. Now you got to take care of your health. But for most people, it's probably going to be something book related. So it might be book marketing or it might be book writing. And even if you only had 15 minutes a day to write a book, you can do 500 words in 15 minutes if you're an expert on the topic. I know that I've done that many mornings. And in 10 weeks, if you do that 6 days a week, you have 30,000 words. And that's almost enough for a small book. So 15 minutes a day for 10 weeks, you can get that book done. So there really is no excuses, even if you're limited to that. And Arnold Schwarzenegger actually, I was reading something that he put out, and he did the numbers on it, the math on it, and that's just 1% of your day. So if you just devoted 1% of your day to writing your book, you could have a book done in about 10 to 12 weeks. 1%. The 1% solution is what Arnold called it. And it really is powerful when you think about it that way, to focus on your number one priority for 1% of your time first thing in the day.
Absolutely. I love that. And you're absolutely right on that, you can have a book done so fast that way, right? One of the things I found, Craig, is that not only is that a great way to do things, but it's almost like the only way to do it effectively, right? Because in my experience, at least, writing for 4 hours or 8 hours at a time, I'm just not going to be productive. If I have 15 minutes where I'm hyper-focused writing my book, I'm going to get the most, efficiency out of that time, right? Whereas if I try to take it too long, I get brain fog and I lose, trying to train of thought and all that stuff, and it just doesn't work nearly as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And so one of my favorite books is called Daily Rituals by Mason Curry. Have you ever heard of that?
Yeah, actually, I've got that on my bookshelf. It's a good book.
I love it because it chronicles probably 100, maybe 150 of the most creative people in history. And, to be honest, they are all over the place, but you take a look at Beethoven, you take a look at some of these great authors that are out there, and even Frank Lloyd Wright, the architect, and they're working before 7 o'clock in the morning, getting things done. Victor Hugo, who wrote Les Miserables, wrote for a couple hours in the morning, and then, like you said, he was done. That was it. There's no more coming out. Charles Dickens, a couple hours in the morning, and then you see like him, Dickens and Charles Darwin and all of these composers would spend the entire afternoon just walking around the city or walking in the country and letting their brain think about what they're going to write about the next day. And probably my favorite one is Stephen King, who writes, I think it's 2,000 words. He has a 2,000 word quota, and he does that from 9 a.m. until whenever it's done. So while you're eating your Wheaties, he's out there writing really crazy death scenes, at the same time of day. But it just shows you the discipline and routine, getting in that focus, getting that quality work done, as you said, Tom, and then moving on to something else. Like he would go and listen to Boston Red Sox games, whereas, Dickens and Darwin's went for walks around London town. But, it is right in line with your philosophy, quality over quantity.
Absolutely, for sure. So, what about for someone who doesn't have a morning routine? Like someone right now who's like, they wake up in the morning, they're groggy, they feel terrible, they have to go to work or they're just in bad habits and they know that they're not being productive in the morning. So how do you shift and actually create that habit and make it stick?
Great question. And so there's two types of people in this world. There's reactive people who you just described, waking up, snooze button, late, in traffic, get to work, check email right away. And then it's 5 o'clock and they're like, oh my goodness, I was so busy today, but I got nothing accomplished. And then there's the proactive person who, switches it to a mindset of, I'm going to plan my day. I'm going to own my day. I'm owning the day and nobody else is controlling my time. And even when there's emergencies, I'm still in control of the situation. And so that's the mindset that I teach people in the book. And once you shift to that, it's like taking personal responsibility. It's like most people, they go through life and at a point they go, wait a minute, I'm in control of this thing. My future depends on me. And when you finally do that, just like great characters in literature, then all of a sudden, wow, you've got that day in your control. And then you can go out and do whatever you want with it. And so that's probably going to mean, wait a minute, thinking and going, aha, my time is at lunchtime. I can't get up any earlier. because, the kids wake me up first thing in the morning and I get to work on time. The only time I have is at lunchtime. Well, I can go to the food court at the mall and sit there, or I can bring my lunch and work for 15, 20 minutes of quality writing time. And you make it work, just like J.K. Rowling made it work when she was, broke and was writing Harry Potter. She made it work. And there's a couple authors in that Daily Rituals where they wrote on a train on the way to their job. And back when I was a personal trainer, that's where I started. I was writing articles on my BlackBerry, crammed up in a subway like this, like literally like this, in like a sardine at 5 o'clock at night on the way home from the gym. And I would write 200 to 300 words just standing there until my stop came. And Alice Munro has a really great quote about this. You write in the slivers of time. So Alice Munro is a Canadian short story author who just won the Nobel Prize for Literature a couple years ago. And she was a single mom for a while. And she just, the kids had a nap. Okay, I got to go and write. And that's what people do. They make the best of what they have.
Absolutely. That's great points there. And I love that, just writing in the slivers of time you find, right? And I think one of the things I've noticed, Craig, about that is that you have to constantly have it on your mind, what your goal is, what your intention is, because you never know when the opportunity is going to come, especially if you've got job and kids and all this stuff going on. You never know where that time is going to come in. So you have to constantly be prepared and constantly have it on your mind so that when you do have 15 minutes, you're not sitting there saying, oh, I'm going to go watch TV. You're sitting down, you're writing, you're working on your goals, you're working on making your dreams come true.
Yeah, absolutely. And it also comes down to, okay, I know I'm looking for that time, but do I have an outline prepared for it? And so when I wake up in the morning, there's 5 bullet points on a Word document that I open up, and it's so much easier to write 300 words for each bullet point than writing 1,500 words on a blank piece of paper. We all know how intimidating that blank page can be. So just another little tip in there to help people be prepared for that time they get.
That's awesome. So when do you do your outline? Do you do it the day before or?
Yeah. So, right now we're having this call at 4 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, and I usually shut down after this. So I'll do a couple bullet points. And I just, I smooth the path to make that 1,000 or 1,500 words easier the next morning. So I already know what I want to write about, and I just have to make a couple notes, and away we go when I wake up. And I'm also a little bit out there, but I'm a little bit of a believer in the subconscious mind doing the work for you overnight. So some mornings I'll wake up and the words just pour out of me, and it's 1,500 words, 2,000 words in under an hour. Now, granted, I have to edit that, but it's really powerful what your brain can do while you sleep.
Absolutely. That's a good point. Yeah. And we've actually had another guest on the show talk about, the ideation process and actually the science behind, how having that idea in your mind the day before can help you be more productive because your subconscious is working on it overnight, which is really, really
Absolutely.
Cool. Yeah. So I'd like to switch gears a little bit, Craig, and talk about earlytorise.com because, you have this site that it's one of the top sites on the internet. You get so much traffic and so many visitors and so many people linking to your stuff and so many people subscribe to your newsletter. And essentially you just write stuff and people read. So can you tell us kind of about the journey, how you created such a huge following with your writing?
Right. Well, it's a great question. And so I actually started off in the fitness industry back in 1999. And so I basically spent the next decade working there, building up a really big video following on YouTube, sold over 100,000 copies of my turbulence training and home workout revolution programs. And then it wasn't until 2011 when I actually bought the business Early to Rise. So it's been around since about 2000. It was started by a guy named Mark Ford. And this gets a little complicated. Mark Ford wrote all of his books and all of his essays originally under the name Michael Masterson. So he has a really popular book called Ready, Fire, Aim, which is great for entrepreneurs. It's probably the best small business entrepreneur book that I recommend people read. And then he also wrote 7 Years to Seven Figures, and he's written a couple books on copywriting. Very prolific guy. And so I learned basically by watching him and then by having him as a mentor how to get more done, how to really crank stuff out. And he's 65 years old and he still gets more done in a year than I do. So it's impressive but kind of frustrating at the same time. So I bought the business in 2011 and it had a very strong following already. But we changed the business a little bit and we were a little health focused for a while. And then I wrote my book in 2015. And now we're more focused on the entrepreneur again, helping people get more done, make more money, and still get home on time for dinner is what I like to say.
That's awesome. So, looking back on your career as a writer, what would you say are some of the key things to success?
One of the things that Mark had me do when I bought Early to Rise was he challenged me on the way that I was writing. So it was very listicle like writing that I was doing in the fitness world. Like, here are the 5 things you need to do today, the 5 exercises, the 10 this, the 10 that. And he kind of, said that was kind of like sugary stuff, And what he challenged me to do was write a daily essay around one point. So instead of having a list of 10 things with a paragraph on each, it was taking the main thing and then turning that into an essay every day. And so our essays now basically start off with a story, then go into a teaching point, then send the reader away with an action step, and then I like to say we tie it all up with a bow at the end, kind of summarizing everything. And so we do 800 to 1,000 words, and it was tough at first. And I was frustrated, and I was kind of like a petulant child trying to say, no, Mark, I know what I'm doing here. But it was really getting feedback from him, sending him my essays and saying, hey, Mark, where can I make this better? And then it was just a matter of, reading a lot. Good authors need to read a lot, model people that they like, and get comfortable with your voice. So I know that's kind of difficult for some people, and it's really difficult when you get into video and stuff. But the more you practice, the better off you're going to be. So practice, practice, practice. And in terms of reading books, I would recommend Stephen King's On Writing as a great way of improving your writing, as well as the Strunk and White. I forget what their little book is, but Elements of Style or whatever that is. Just go, and you have to make every sentence count. Essentially, is what you have to learn how to do, and it's practice. And so if you don't feel like you're a good writer now, don't let that stop you from writing, because writing is what you have to do the most of.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. Those are great recommendations on books, by the way, but you're dead on that. You have to just practice writing, right? There's no way around it. Like, you can read all the books you want, you can study all you want, but if you're not practicing and implementing and working on it consistently, you're not going to improve. And everyone starts out as a bad writer. No one hops out of the womb and is like just a magical gifted writer. And we have to, you jump out of the room illiterate, right? And I think there's a lot of people understand like we learn language is like kind of like wired into our DNA, but writing is not. It's something you have to learn through culture. And so everyone starts out as zero. Everyone starts out as a poor writer. Everyone starts out illiterate. And so you have to go through this process where you're constantly working at it to get better and better and better every day.
Yeah, and one thing to add to that is you have to, have that thick skin and ask for feedback from somebody who's good. So, I talk about in the book these 5 pillars of success, and one of the pillars is getting professional accountability. It doesn't matter if you want to be a copywriter or a book writer, or you want to be a better golfer. You have to have somebody who's got the skills and expert advice who can teach you, simplify it, and then you have to have, be able to stand up and say, okay, here's my effort. How can you correct me and make me better? And then not be offended by it. And, like I said, this is easier for me to say than to actually take that advice, because I want to think that I'm so great, but it's only through feedback, through accountability, and through getting improvement and feedback from a higher level person that I was able to improve as a writer. And I still have a long way to go. For example, my Perfect Day formula, we went through 9 rounds of edits with my editor, and we just made the book so much better. And obviously, if I would have sent it out on the first one, I certainly wouldn't have all the 5-star reviews that I have, and wouldn't have the raving fans, because I needed to get better.
Absolutely. That's great advice. The feedback, I think, is so crucial. And I think one of the biggest things that holds people back is that they're not, they get emotional, they get personally attached to it. They get reactive. They say, oh, this person is just negative, or they're just critical, or they just left me a bad review. And they don't learn from, maybe the one idea or the one tip in there that can actually help them become a better writer.
Yeah. And it really is important to have positive people around you, encouraging you to continue writing. So another Stephen King story from his book, he talks about how he actually threw the manuscript for Carrie into the garbage, and his wife fished it out, and she said, no, I think we can do something with this. So imagine that. That was the first book that he got a big deal on, or published. And so if she didn't fish that out and say, hey, we can work on this and make it better, who knows? Maybe he never would have had his breakthrough. Maybe he would have given up and went back to, I think he was working in a laundromat at the time. And so, it's really important for what you said there. Nobody is a great writer to start. And all these people that are famous now, just remember they started out from where you are today. And like you, they worked to get better, and just like you can get better.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. If someone else can do it, you can do it. I mean, that's one of the things I like to do when like setting goals. It's like, okay, has someone else done this before me? Like you set a goal to write a book, get it published. It's like millions of people have done that already. Right. So it's just proof right there that you can do it. You just have to put the time and effort and energy into it, just like everybody else did.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Cool. So let's talk a little bit more about marketing, right? Because you're obviously not just a great writer and a consistent writer, you're also pretty darn good at marketing. So what are some of the things you do to actually, like when you're releasing this book, what were you thinking about in terms of marketing when you were talking about launching this book, The Perfect Day?
Well, there's two things that we did. We did a lot of things, but two things that I want to share with people right now is I had a call with Dan Kennedy, who's the marketing mentor. I mean, he's been around for 40 years now in marketing. He says tons of books. And one thing that he said to me was every time he did a teleseminar with somebody, he would sell about 100 books. And I thought, okay, well, if I do 100 podcasts, maybe I'll be able to sell 100 books every I wouldn't expect to sell 100 books every podcast per se, but maybe 20 books every time I did podcasts. So this is probably the 103rd interview I've done this year. And it's allowed me to become a better speaker and go on stage and speak about my book. But it's also allowed me to better articulate the stories and get in front of so many audiences. So that's one thing. I planned a virtual book tour and I went hardcore on it. I got all in on podcasting as a way to get my message out there. And then another thing that he challenged me on was like, okay, Craig, you got another time management book. How can you go and make it differentiated? And so we put together this thing called the Perfect Day Formula Kit, which includes the book. And then I took a whole bunch of success tools out of the book and I expanded on them. And so now we sell our book for $20 on Amazon, but we sell our kit for $200 on Amazon. And it's a really high level coaching program in a box, which is essentially like me sitting at your kitchen table, taking you through all these questions. So there's little work tools in there, you pull them out and it's the questions and you fill them out. And it's like having me coaching you. And then from there, we send people up to in-person coaching, into my one-on-one coaching programs around the Perfect Day Formula. So there's so much you can do with the book aside from just selling the book. And then one other lesson I learned this year was that the audiobook just sells twice as much as any other version of your book. One, I think it's because they're most often cheaper. And I found out that Audible only lets you sell the book at a price based on the length of the audio. So my book is really short, so it's $5. So that's one of the reasons we sell twice as much. But also people just can listen to an audiobook hands-free instead of having, they need their hands to read or a computer to read and hands to read the Kindle version, but they can listen to an audiobook while they're doing 19 different things, working out, sitting around at home, driving in the car. So make sure that you do have an audiobook version of your book. And I didn't do the recording myself until this week. So we sold so many copies with this voiceover, which was okay, but people wanted to hear it from me. And so I learned the hard way that I needed to have recorded it in the first place. And so I'm very excited that now we have my version out there. So those are some of the things I learned in the marketing of it. And I mean, we could talk about it all day. There's probably like 21 different ways that I've been able to sell my book, from traditional speaking to coaching and consulting, and using the book to do coaching and consulting. So there's just an empire you can build around one book. So you don't have to go and write 20 books. You can actually make a lot of money just on one book alone if it's your keystone book.
Absolutely. Man, you shared so much wisdom here. It's amazing. I want to kind of break it down a little bit. So you talked about, one of the benefits of doing podcasts and interviews and speaking about your book is it helps you better articulate your ideas. And I think that is a point that's often overlooked by a lot of authors. Like they say, oh, I don't want to do interviews. I don't want to do TV. I don't want to do video because I'm not good at it. Right. I mean, same thing, like if you're not good at writing, some people might feel like they're not good at writing. Right. And so that's why they don't do it. But the thing is that you're not going to get good at it until you do it. And I have found that so true in my career, Craig, that by doing more video, by doing more speaking, by doing more podcasts, I become a better communicator. And that helps improve my writing, not just my speaking. It also helps improve my relationships. Like, just conversations with friends and family members and business partners. I find I'm better able to communicate the thoughts going on in my mind. So I think that for anyone out there who hasn't done that yet, I would challenge them to go ahead and do that because that can make a huge, huge difference.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you make a couple of great points there. I mean, we all know what's in our book, but can you go and describe that in a really, I guess you would say, sexy way to somebody who's not a reader or to somebody who's like, okay, I'm going to choose your book or this book. Why should I choose your book? And it's all about becoming a better communicator. So like I said, I've done 103 podcasts. I've learned how to articulate the message. I've learned the best way to, deliver the message, what order to deliver it in. I've actually perfected jokes by doing the podcast over and over again. Like, I'll do a podcast with somebody and I'll be able to see the reaction. If I was telling a story where you were bored, I'd be like, okay, I got to stop here and let him have something to say. Or, I tried the punchline, it kind of worked. Next time I try a different punchline, and bang, it worked. And then it allowed me to go on stage and become a better speaker. So, I speak probably once or twice a month in front of 300 to 500 people. And, they always send me an email. Okay, can you send us your slides? And I'm like, I don't do slides, because I memorized my speech from doing those 100 podcasts. And everything, as you said, Tom, is a learnable skill, whether it's writing, becoming a better golfer, becoming a better communicator, or memorizing a speech. It's all a learnable skill. And so even if people don't want to do it, if you're proud of your book and you want to share it with the world, then you got to go and do it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Totally agree with that. So, okay. Another thing that you talked about before is you talked about your funnel, right? So you have the $20 book over the paperback, I assume. And then you've got your audiobook and your ebook. And then you've
actually a hard copy.
Go ahead.
It's actually a hard copy. I went all out and I really wanted to make an impact and set it, different from other people. So we usually do hard copy, and it's self-published. We just ran out, and so we had to emergency publish some soft covers. So if someone does get a soft cover, that's why you got it. But almost all of them are hard copy, because we wanted to stand out there.
Awesome. Cool. So you've got the hardcover books, you've got the audiobooks, the ebooks, but you've also got your kit, right? So your $200 kit that you're selling on Amazon. And then you also said you have a one-on-one coaching program that you have self-managed. So what is the price of that?
$25,000, and it's 1 day with me to get their day dialed in. So that's our highest end coaching. And then we have small group coaching where it's 5 people in a room and it's $5,000. And that's called our Perfect Life Workshop. And it really is this deep dive into self-discovery. So it's not the stuff that's in the book. It's the stuff that I've discovered that is the next level that I didn't put in the book. And it helps entrepreneurs and executives. We're dealing with people with over $100,000 a year salaries or $1 million businesses. And they come in and we just do these questions, and I extract the mental clutter out of their heads and give them mental clarity and a 30-day blueprint for achieving extraordinary results in every aspect of their life, from taking their business to the next level to having more quality time with their family. So we have, as you mentioned, we have the $20 book, but we also have the free plus shipping book offer on Facebook. So we do that. We also have the $20 book on Amazon. Then we have the $200 kit. Then we have a $500 webinar coaching program. And then that goes into the next level is going to be the $5,000 group coaching, and then the $25,000 one-on-one coaching, which is our highest level entrepreneur.
That's awesome. I love how you map that out, because I think that's really helpful for people to see, like, all the different revenue streams that you have from that one book. Because I know we have a lot of self-help authors as well who listen to the show, and they can actually model that. Like, you can create something just like that, right? Like, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You can model what works and use that to build your business, right?
Absolutely. It's somewhat modeled after Brendon Burchard. It's kind of like that. It's kind of Tony Robbins-ish, but it's also something completely different than what anybody else is doing. And it's all based on my, zone of genius, unique ability, whatever you want to call it. I'm meant to do this. This is my life's work. And I'll be honest with you, it took me 20 years to figure out exactly what I should be doing, but now I've got it, because I like fitness, but I wasn't totally into fitness. I wasn't excited about it. I didn't want to, speak about fitness, but I wanted to help people. And so I got my, feet wet there, figured a few things out, and then realized, hey, I am put here to help people really dominate their days and help the high-level entrepreneurs take it to the next level. And, the book is going to help a busy mom and a dad, but at the end of the day, I'm here to help, people like you, Tom, who are going to have a huge reach and a huge impact. And I'm coaching those people, and then they pass it on down the line to their mass audiences. So I found what I'm ready to do, and that's my business model, and it's working for me. It's obviously not the same business model that most people can use, but if somebody's writing a book on golf, they can go and do $20 book and then into a golf kit, and then into, you know, video golf lessons at 197, and then maybe some Skype calls at 597, and then maybe a golf retreat with them for $3,000 for the weekend. And then maybe they're going to have that high-end person who's going to go, listen, I want a week with you for 25 grand or 50 grand, just one-on-one, because I can afford it. And that's a golf, you know, business based around a book. And so I could outline this for pretty much everything from knitting coach to golf coach to whatever, because it will work, because there's always going to be someone who wants that one-on-one time with you. And there's a way for you to deliver it and really add value.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's super inspiring to see you, man, to hear you talk about like how passionate you are about this, right? That you finally found your purpose after, you know, 20 years, right? It's so cool to see. And I love that you're passing out and sharing with other people through the perfect day and through everything that you're doing.
Yeah. I mean, I just love talking about this stuff and just showing and giving people those little tweaks, because it's all, you know, it's all I think about all day long. And, you know, I know so many people just kind of struggle and like they're spinning their wheels, and I just go and I like to use this analogy. It's like an Indy car off in the soft grass, and they're spinning their wheels, and it's this amazing machine. You know, the front wheels are on, but the back wheels are spinning, and I just go and I lift up the back wheels and I put them down on the asphalt, and the next thing you know, they're 160 miles an hour, because I just tweaked the system and gave them that insight that allowed them to go from, you know, struggling to write 300 words a day to writing 2,000 words a day and cranking out 2 books in a year and getting that book deal and becoming the next J.K. Rowling. And I mean, that's what I want to do. And those are the success stories I want to have.
That's great. So let's talk a little bit about technology, right? Because, you know, one of the most common things readers mention is about technology. So like, you know, what tools should they be using to be more productive? And then also like, how do they get out of like the habits of like checking Facebook and Twitter constantly, not being productive? So, you know, what is your take on technology and how it fits and helps you make a perfect day?
I don't have my phone with me, but I use a 6.5-year-old BlackBerry. So it barely accesses the internet. You know, I can access Hotmail to check my one email account and Twitter. That's it. It can't, you know, I can't go on Facebook. I can't go in I don't get my email to it, my regular email. I don't do anything on a smartphone. So I save myself so much time. I stay away from electronics. I don't go on the internet until I've written my 1,000 or 1,500 words. In fact, I have an apartment in Denver and I live up in Canada, but my business is based in Denver. So when I'm in Denver, I don't actually have the internet at home. So I wake up and I write, and I can't do anything else unless I would go to the office, which is, you know, a 10-minute walk away. So I'm just building this, you know, fence around me that protects myself from technology. I don't use any apps. I don't think any apps are worthwhile. I don't think you need them. I mean, you can go in daily rituals, use apps, you know, to write these amazing books. You know, Stephen King didn't use apps to write my favorite book ever, The Stand. And so we don't need that junk. And don't let, you know, planning and apps, you know, become this perverse form of procrastination. So I'm this crazy old man, you know, on my porch saying technology's bad.
No, that's hilarious, man. And I think there's a lot of truth to that, right? Because you know, it always cracks me up when someone's like, "Oh, have you had this newest productivity app?" And, you know, it'll remind you to do this or that or whatever. It's like, you know, you're just programming yourself to spend more time on your phone, not to actually get important work done.
Right. You're spending all this time looking for productivity apps to become more productive. I mean, that's just, it's not how it works. No.
You're right. Absolutely. So how do you manage, I know, you know, today you've got a big business, you've got a big team. How do you manage all that? Because, you know, it sounds like you're a very creative person. You know, how do you manage building a business, building a team as a creative person?
That's a really great question. And so my business partner always used to give me a hard time because I wasn't doing the managing side of things as well as I could have. And there's really 2 different schedules in this world. There's the maker side, the creator side, and then there's the manager side. And the creator needs to block, you know, emails and phone calls and be alone and not be bothered by people. And then the manager of the business has to be in there all the time, working with people, showing them, you know, being that effective leader, helping them, coaching them. And so what I realized was I need to get the maker stuff done before I go and do the managing stuff. And so it doesn't matter if I'm in the office in Denver or if I'm here in Toronto and working with the team back in Denver. I have to go and realize that once the team comes in, I can't expect to be writing 1,000-word articles. I have to get that done before the day starts. And so that's the truth to it, is you just can't be a maker on a manager's timeline. or and if you try and be a manager on a maker's schedule, you're actually going to hurt your creativity. So it does need to be separated as much as possible, blocked off, and give your team, if you're building a team, give them the time and attention that they need. Now, it doesn't mean you have to work 2 full-time jobs, but you just need to make sure that you have the time dedicated for each, and you're not trying to do a bit of A and a bit of B at the same time. You just can't multitask that way. So you have to go from, okay, when the making time is done, and now I'm managing, I'm present, and I'm fully focused on my people and giving them what they need to flourish.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that's true. Like multitasking just doesn't work. And for me, I found the same thing with the maker schedule, the manager schedule. Like I have to have that maker schedule to be productive. I can't just have meetings all day, every day. So I've separated out. So I only have meetings 3 days a week at most. Right. So I've got at least 4 days a week where I can just be totally creative. I don't have to worry about what's happening at 12, what's happening at 1, what's happening at 9 a.m. It's like I can just be creative, and I can have that time, whether I want to take a walk or write or record a video. I think that's so crucial because, for me, I found like I'm like ADD, ADHD, super creative, and it just doesn't work to constantly be distracted by technology and by meetings and appointments and so forth.
Absolutely. You got to block that time. And when I do things, I generally keep them in the morning as much as possible. And even when I didn't have a big team to manage, I wasn't really doing much in the afternoon in terms of creating stuff, because maybe I run out of words. I don't know how to describe it, but I mean, if I had to, if there was a gun to my head, I could write in the afternoon, but it's not something that's easy for me. And so I came up with this concept called magic time that I talk about in the book, and everybody has it. And it's a different time of day for most people, but it's that time of day when you're 3 times more productive and creative. And so for me, I realized it was first thing in the morning or early in the morning. And so I block that time and I don't do anything else, and I avoid distractions. And for someone listening, it might be from 10 a.m. till noon. And so they would just need to block that time and not take any phone calls and not do any meetings, and make sure that they're blocked from the internet so that they focus on being creative in that time. And one of my friends is a night owl, and he's best from 10 p.m. till 3 a.m. And you can't fight the chronological night owls that are out there. I mean, you just make it so that their schedule works for them, and they block their magic time, which is late at night. And so just find your time and then protect it so that you can become more creative and triple your productivity.
Definitely. Yeah, I love the word protecting it, right? Because I think that's it. Like that's really what it is. It's like taking care of yourself. It's like, just like you want to eat healthy, you want to, exercise, you want to take care of your body. Like you have to take care of your life, like your work schedule, right? And you have to, if you don't protect it, if you don't take care of it, you can't expect to be, a creative genius or super productive, because, you just haven't protected. Like you haven't, like, it's almost like the Jim Rohn has this great quote about, like the weeds, right? And it's like, in a garden, if you're a farmer, every summer you have to go out there, you have to protect your plants, you protect your crops from the weeds. And I feel like, the technology and the distractions and all the emails and everything today, it's like these weeds constantly coming in, trying to steal you, right? Literally trying to steal your life and steal your creativity and steal your productivity. And you have to protect yourself from that. And I love that that's what you're doing. That's what you're teaching people, because it's so important.
Yeah, absolutely. Jim Rohn, man, he has another great quote that I always like to mention. It kind of relates to this is, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And so you want to be spending time with other people who are great writers, great marketers, so that, their expertise rubs off on you and you play up to their level and become better. So, if you're struggling and all you do is hang around struggling writers, you need to expand your network, and you need to go to events, and you need to, get Tom's coaching or whatever it is, so that you play up a level. Because, it's just like in the gym, which is where I spent a lot of my life. If you hang around people that run a 10-minute mile, you're never going to run a 6-minute mile. You're never going to break past that. You have to go and hang around those 6-minute milers if you want to run a 6-minute mile. And so that's the way we have to think about the people we spend our time with, in addition to getting out of those weeds, as you said.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, I just came back from a mastermind group this last weekend, and it's like the level of energy and inspiration and creativity is just like, it's on a whole new level, like after that event. Right. And so, yeah, it's so important to, like, I've been like a seminar junkie for years, going to seminars, going to workshops, trying to be around successful people so I can learn from them and learn from their ideas. And it makes a huge, huge difference.
Totally.
Awesome. Well, Craig, this has been an amazing interview. I'm so stoked about this. I'm excited to get your kit. I know it's coming in the mail. I can't wait to check it out and start implementing your perfect day formula, man. So tell us, folks listening, where can they find out more about you and the perfect day and what you're working on?
So they can get a free copy of my book with the free plus shipping offer at freeperfectdaybook.com. So that'd be really cool for people to check that out. And then they can go to earlyrise.com and read our daily wisdom and essays. I mean, we have James Altucher, we have myself, we have Mark Ford. We have tons of great authors. Every day we pump out one great new piece of content with wisdom, with really focused and dialed in piece of advice for people to go and take action on. So earlyrise.com and freeperfectdaybook.com.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Craig, for sharing all your wisdom. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Tom. This is great.